gentlemen, we welcome you to our hearing today. You raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please consider yourself to be under oath.
In April 1994, the House Subcommittee on Health and the Environment heard testimony from the CEOs of the leading tobacco manufacturers. Representative Henry Waxman, then chairman of the committee, stated in his opening remarks that the purpose of the hearing was to mark the beginning of a new relationship between Congress and the tobacco companies. What Representative Waxman was alluding to was the changing tide toward treating the tobacco industry like other consumer product industries, rather than continuing to exempt or protect it from regulatory laws. This videotape will let you see for yourself how the industry is arguing against this change. Juxtaposed against these arguments are facts you will find useful as you work to improve the public's health by reducing tobacco use. We hope these facts will help you establish your position in a logical and effective way. Now let's go to the Hill.
I came out of retirement to rejoin the tobacco industry, mindful of the challenges presented to it at this time, and also with the knowledge, born of my experience, that the tobacco industry is one of the respectable American industries that make up American commerce. It acts responsibly in its business practices, and it produces a product recognized worldwide for its quality.
Do you or do you not agree with the Surgeon General's estimate of over 400,000 smokers dying?
I do not agree.
Okay. Do you know how many die each year?
I do not know.
Overwhelming scientific evidence proves beyond doubt that smoking kills. The fact is, smoking is the single most preventable cause of premature death in the United States. 1 in 5 deaths in the U.S. is directly caused by smoking. On average, smokers die at least 7 years earlier than non-smokers. Of the 48 million Americans who smoke, more than 1,100 people die each day in the United States from smoking-related illnesses. The tobacco industry stands alone in denying deaths attributable to tobacco use. The CDC estimates that more than 400,000 deaths attributable to smoking occurred in 1990. Finally, more than 3,000 young people start smoking each day, and tobacco use costs our nation $50 billion in direct medical costs each year.
The experts also agree that smoking causes heart disease. Do you agree that smoking causes heart disease?
It may.
Okay. They agree that smoking causes lung cancer. Do you agree?
It may.
Do you know whether it does?
I do not know.
Mr. Tisch, I want to move to you for a moment. In a deposition last year, you were asked whether cigarette smoking causes cancer. Your answer was, quote, "I don't believe so." Do you stand by that answer today?
I do, sir.
Do you understand how isolated you are in that belief from the entire scientific community?
I do, sir.
The tobacco companies are isolated in their beliefs not only from the scientific community, but from the lay community as well. A recent New York Times CBS News poll found that only 11% of those polled believe the tobacco industry told the whole truth about the health issues associated with smoking. The fact is, about 120,000 people in the U.S. die from lung cancer caused by smoking or environmental tobacco smoke. About 180,000 people die each year from smoking-related cardiovascular diseases. According to the 1989 Surgeon General's report, smokers face a 70% greater coronary heart disease death rate than do non-smokers. It is also a fact that there is no question that smoking causes lung cancer. As early as the 1950s, epidemiologic data began to show that smoking was causally related to cancer of the lung. The 1964 Surgeon General's report conclusively established that fact. Numerous studies since the early findings of the 50s and 60s have further confirmed the relationship between smoking and lung cancer, taking into account age of initiation, rate of inhalation, race, gender, and other factors.
Let me begin my questioning on the matter of whether or not nicotine is addictive. Let me ask you first, and I'd like to just go down the row, whether each of you believes that nicotine is not addictive. I heard virtually all of you touch on it. Just yes or no. Do you believe nicotine is not addictive?
I believe nicotine is not addictive, yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Congressman, cigarettes and nicotine clearly do not meet the classic definitions of addiction. There is no intoxication.
We'll take that as a no, and again, time is short. If you could just, I think each of you believe nicotine is not addictive. We just would like to have this for the record.
I don't believe that nicotine or our products are addictive.
I believe nicotine is not addictive.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
And I too believe that nicotine is not addictive.
The World Health Organization, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, the American Psychiatric Association, and the CDC all agree that tobacco meets the criteria for defining drug addiction. The scientific community agrees that nicotine is highly addictive, and regular use of nicotine is a drug addiction. Nicotine is the drug in tobacco products that causes addiction. Smokers themselves believe that smoking is addictive. A Gallup poll showed that 87% of smokers say cigarettes are addictive.
The strict pharmacological definition of addiction involves three different criteria. They are intoxication, physical dependence, and tolerance. And to my knowledge, there is no evidence that nicotine or cigarette smoking plays in any of these definitions.
There is an entire Surgeon General's report and hundreds of scientific papers that prove nicotine causes physical dependence and tolerance. The criteria for drug addiction defined by WHO, NIDA, and APA have been, first, the substance is mood-altering and enters the brain through the bloodstream, and the drug is reinforcing. That is, the effects of the drug are so rewarding that the user continues to take it. Second, the drug-seeking or taking behavior is driven by strong, persistent, and often irresistible urges. Third, there are regular patterns of use, continued use despite harmful effects, relapse following an abstinent period, and recurrent cravings for the drug. Dependence-producing drugs often create a tolerance, physical dependence, and pleasant effects. Nicotine is intoxicating and mood-altering. It affects the body in different ways. Smokers are able to use nicotine both as a tranquilizer and as a stimulant. Smokers may have a cigarette when they're under stress to calm them down. And they may smoke a cigarette if they're bored or restless to perk them up. Nicotine is a drug that is easy for the user to regulate. The body responds to it quickly. Nicotine reaches the brain within 10 seconds of inhalation. According to the 1988 Surgeon General's report, nicotine does cause physical dependence. Withdrawal syndrome is the primary line of evidence to decide whether a drug can cause physical dependence. Numerous scientific studies demonstrate that there are considerable withdrawal reactions from nicotine. Withdrawal symptoms are both physical and behavioral. These include cravings for the drug, irritability, disrupted sleep cycle, and changes in blood pressure, pulse, and body temperature. People who stop using tobacco experience a period of withdrawal.
Liggett does not believe that there is any such thing as an addicting level of nicotine in cigarettes, or that cigarettes are addictive like heroin or cocaine, as has been alleged. In fact, to equate cigarette smoking with actual hard drug addiction ignores the significant differences between them. It also blinks at reality.
During the past several years, there have been a wide variety of attempts to convince the American public that cigarettes are addictive, and that some public officials have even gone so far as to put cigarettes in the same class as cocaine and heroin. You don't need to be a trained scientist to see this isn't true. All you need to do is ask and honestly answer two simple questions. First, would you rather board a plane with a pilot who just smoked a cigarette, or one with a pilot who just had a couple of beers, or snorted cocaine, or shot heroin, or popped some pills? Second, if cigarettes were addictive, could almost 43 million Americans have quit smoking, almost all of them on their own, without any outside help?
Not all addictive substances cause a loss of control to the detriment of others. It's obvious that most people would probably agree that they would rather fly with a pilot who has smoked a cigarette than one who has ingested cocaine. On face value, it is difficult to compare a legal, socially acceptable behavior, cigarette smoking, to an illegal, socially unacceptable behavior, illicit drug use. However, the two are quite comparable. As I said before, study after study proves that the criteria that defines drug dependence applies to nicotine. The tobacco industry's argument that nicotine is not addictive because so many people have quit smoking implies that addiction is synonymous with impossible to stop using. But this is not the case. Even if it did, studies show heroin and cocaine users are able to quit on their own. Yet no one argues that heroin and cocaine are not addictive. Cigarettes are addicting. The 43 million people who quit on their own faced a formidable challenge when they quit. For example, they had most likely tried more than once before they were successful, and many of them had previously participated in a formal smoking cessation program.
Mr. Johnson, 1,147 people die each day because of cigarettes. And with those deaths, there is a need to replenish the customer base. It is your claim that you do not target children to replenish that base. Is that correct?
There is no need to replenish that base, and no, we do not market to children and will not.
The tobacco industry needs to recruit thousands of smokers every day to replace those smokers who die or quit. Adults don't start smoking, kids do. The fact is, 90% of people who smoke started before they were 18. Smokers become addicted in their teens.
Now, I'm not satisfied with your answers, but I do know because you have the opportunity as the chief of your company to make the decision to pull that ad so that there'll be no doubt that you're trying to attract children. Will you pull that ad and that advertising campaign so that we can eliminate the attraction that this ad clearly does to children? Will you do that?
I will repeat for the record, if I thought that campaign caused any young people to begin smoking, I would pull it in a heartbeat.
The fact is that since 1987, when the Joe Camel campaign was introduced, Camel cigarettes increased 64%, from a market share of 8.1% to 13.3% among teenage smokers. Camels are not the only cigarettes heavily advertised. 85% of adolescent smokers prefer either Marlboro, Newport, or Camel, the three most heavily advertised brands. In addition, ads and promotions appear in places where many young people see them, including magazines like Glamour and Sports Illustrated, each of which has a high percentage of readers under 18. Sporting and entertainment events that attract teens are often sponsored by the tobacco industry. The tobacco industry spends $5.2 billion a year, or more than $500,000 an hour, to market cigarettes. About 20% is spent on advertising, and 80% is spent on promotions, such as events, sponsorships, coupons, and giveaways.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Are we off the record?
Yeah. We're on the record?
I don't think we were.
We're on the record.
Okay, just for the record, how long was that flight? I didn't check my watch.
We'll have to go. Well, I can do that.
The VCR indicates 16 minutes.
Thank you.
Take a brief break. Easier.
All right, let's take a break.
We are off the record. Time is 11:35 a.m. We are back on the record. The time is 11:40 a.m.
Okay, I have asked the witness to go back to her hotel for the time being. It's clear that counsel and I have a very different view about what's appropriate in the deposition and the reason for the deposition. And, Norm, there's no reason to hash that out at this point. Instead of, I toyed with the idea of terminating the deposition, but I think the judge has offered to make himself available to us to resolve disputes like that. And so I suggest that we take advantage of that, get some direction from the judge about what's proper and what's not, and go from there. And so what I'd propose to do, Norm, if it's acceptable to you, is to call the judge, see if we can go see him now or at least sometime today. And then I'll present to him my position, you can present to him your position, and we'll see what he says.
That'd be fine. I think that's a reasonable solution. There's no use us fighting it out. We can have the judge decide.
Yeah, it'd be fun to fight it out, but of course neither of us can win until we get to the judge anyway. So,
well, let's go ahead and do that. Why don't we go off the record then and see if we can get in front of the judge.
Okay, thank you.
We are off the record. This concludes tape 1 of the deposition. The time is 11:41 a.m.
Okay.
We are back on the record. The time is 2:38 p.m.
Okay, we're back on the record. We just went and saw Judge Prager, and as a result of that, counsel have agreed that we're going to end this volume of Ms. Creighton's deposition and close it as volume 1. We further agreed that sometime in September, early October, Ms. Creighton will return to San Diego for 2 days of deposition, 14 hours, I think, as the judge uses the term 2 days, at a mutually convenient time. That will have the usual stipulation that we have in the other cases. They will, the court reporter waive having her sign it and allow her to sign it under penalty of perjury, and the other sundry stipulations that we have. And I think is that okay?
Yeah,
Counsel?
that's agreed. When you say 14 hours, I didn't take you to mean anything differently, but the judge meant 14 hours over 2 calendar days.
Correct.
So, but anyway, and I'm sure that's what you meant.
That is what I meant.
Otherwise, yes, what you said is accurate.
All right. Anything else, counsel? Is that acceptable? Acceptable to everybody else?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
This concludes deposition, and we are off the record at 2:40 p.m.